For the first 44 years of my life, I hated weekends. And honestly, if that younger version of me could see my older self sleeping in until 9:30 on a Saturday, waking up to my partner making me breakfast while I type up a women's rights article, or see that same partner pack a picnic and drive me up the mountain while I finish and publish the article, I think that she would literally die of shock. I grew up the oldest daughter in a good-sized Mormon family, and Saturdays were so busy watching my brothers and sisters and cleaning my bedroom while my mom and dad got everything ready for church on Sunday that I could have never had this beautiful moment alone in a hammock. Then I got married when I was barely an adult myself, and of course obeyed the Mormon commandment to start having babies right away, so weekends once again became utterly exhausting. But now I'm no longer Mormon. A lot of my kids are grown and gone, and I'm no longer in a traditionally gender rolled relationship. So I have the free time this afternoon to lay in a hammock and read about what people like Pastor Daniel Gerke and the Mormons in the early 1900s taught about women's reproductive rights. Reading this book is such a unique experience for me because I'm learning concepts that I never thought about. And you guys, I turned 50 a few months ago. So it's just bizarre that these are things that I've never even heard of or thought of before. Like, even the term reproductive rights, I always thought meant just that I have the right to have as many babies as I want. I've never even thought about the concept that it's also my right to say I don't want to have babies or to determine when or how many. When I was a 20-year-old girl, I got married in one of the Mormon temples up in Portland, Oregon. As preparation for the actual wedding ceremony, I received what's called the initiatories, or the washings and anointings. While seated on a marble initiatory altar, a woman washed my pelvic area just across my hip bones and underneath my belly button with water, and then anointed me with oil. And while doing so, she told me, I bless your loins, that you will be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Next, I went through an ordinance called the endowment. You can Google this online if you'd like to watch videos. New Name Noah is a great place here on YouTube to watch some of those secret recordings. And again, I was there for my wedding, so this was leading up to the wedding. The 2-hour endowment session inside the temple acts out the creation of the world, Adam and Eve, Satan in the garden, things like that. And then those in attendance inside the temple, like myself and my fiance who are getting married that day, were given all kinds of different commandments, and we made oaths and learned secret handshakes, and different signs and symbols in relation to those commandments. You know what the first commandment was that we were given? To be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. After all that, we finally had our wedding, which was really short. It took like 5 minutes over an altar in the temple with almost none of my family there, including my parents. I'll do a separate video on that. So I left my wedding inside the temple with this feeling that I had been called by Heavenly Father to basically be a breeder for the expansion of the membership of the church. And that wasn't a negative to me. That was to me a sacred calling and a sacred responsibility. I remember one of my priesthood leaders not too long after that telling me that I should let Heavenly Father be my birth control, and I should never ever use birth control, which was in 1995 when I got married, strictly against the commandments of the Mormon Church. I was told that Heavenly Father would send me the babies that He wanted me to have, and that is how I lived my entire adult life. This book talks about how the Mormon Church, which prohibited birth control until the 1990s, which was right about when I was getting married, used their influence to fight birth control in general, because the Mormon Church believes that their doctrine is not just for their members, but for the whole world. So they had a lot of impact in the state of Arizona. And since I grew up very sheltered inside that Mormon bubble, obviously they had a huge impact on my life. Kev, by the way, was never Mormon, so he didn't grow up with that extreme pressure to have as many babies as you possibly can. But I did. I was commanded to be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. I believed I had spirit brothers and sisters in heaven who needed to come to earth and get bodies. So I raised 5 babies, 4 biological, 1 adopted, and never once Did I ever take into consideration what I needed? Questions like, am I in a solid relationship where I feel happy, safe, and secure? Do I feel like I actually want a baby right now? How's my mental health and emotional well being? Do I feel like I'm at a place where I can show up emotionally for the newborn, a toddler, all those developmental stages of a child? Can I physically handle the pregnancy and then the workload of another little person in my home? And just in general, like, there was never any like science applied to, are we over our parenting capacity already? What do our finances look like? Can we show up for this person and support them? None of that was ever taken into consideration. So, several of my kids were a big challenge. They came at times where my marriage was extremely problematic, where our lives were just so busy and so involved that it was really difficult for me to be pregnant, difficult to have a newborn. And because there wasn't a lot of planning in the pregnancies and the babies, there was almost no planning later on down the road for like older kids, teenagers, and getting them into adulthood. Like, I never once thought, how old am I going to be when my last kid graduates from high school? What might my life look like then? And will I be able to care for them then as much as I'm able to now? And like I said earlier, I just thought that reproductive rights meant that I had the right to have as many babies as I wanted. I was living in a religious culture that taught that I was to multiply and reproduce and fill the earth with as many children as Heavenly Father wanted me to have. And it never once occurred to me, maybe being a mom shouldn't be so hard. Maybe 5 kids under the age of 10 with an abusive husband, with health that was about to collapse. Maybe that wasn't my whole purpose in life, and maybe it wasn't the best choice. A year after my last baby was born, I would be diagnosed with an ovarian tumor, which would almost take my life. I'm still a decade later struggling with some of the long term consequences of that tumor and the surgery and everything that came with it. When that baby was 5, my husband would abandon his family. And after decades of being a stay at home mom, I would find myself supporting a big family of kids with no job skills, no college, no ability to take care of myself, let alone the children that were dependent on me. So now here I am, this ex Mormon feminist, women's rights advocate, and I find myself constantly wondering just one thing. Why does anybody think it's okay for the priests and the bishops and the prophets and the husbands and the men to have any sort of decision making power over our bodies? I wrote a little Substack article about it last week. You can find me on Substack as Life Take Two, the series I'm working on is Churchified. The article on this topic is called Power, Priesthood, and Pussy. And I dive into how ironic it is that throughout the Bible, men have personalities, they have purpose, they have missions, and women are literally just wombs with legs. The most famous woman of all in the Bible being Mary, who is nothing but a concubine for the god. I just kind of wonder if it isn't time for us as women to just plug our ears and block out those outside voices and tune into our own intuition, tune into our own gut instinct about when we are truly ready to be mothers. I think that we should control the timing when we are ready and able to provide for that child, making sure that we're planning ahead to be able to provide for them throughout their life, even if we're alone, because 50% fail rate on marriages. At some point, half of us will be alone raising our children. And I feel like if and when a woman decides that she does want to become a mother, it should be because she truly desires to provide that nurturing and that companionship for another human being, not just because it's what everybody tells her she has to do.